Hi everybody, welcome to today's Information City lecture. I want to take a moment to express how long it takes to get things done with an expression that I'm very fond of. And this is the expression, what's past is history, what's ahead is a mystery, but today is a gift, and that's why we call it the present. The reason I want to mention this is that we have been at community informatics for a long time, and we're at an interesting point, almost to the point of a handoff, because Noah is that close to finishing his dissertation. So I want to mention history. I've showed you all this before, but I want it on camera. This is a mixtape that we created out of the community center in Toledo, Ohio 10 years ago called Regroup, Pass the Message. And it's full of tracks about IT with community orientation, and it's all on YouTube. So history. The future, the mystery. This is the One Saturday proposal that we are putting together this week, and I want to remind everybody here to talk about this with somebody between now and next week so we can come back and polish it up and see if it isn't something we can launch around getting more computer help into our libraries, especially jumping out of business. Today is a gift, and I want to share a gift with our next speaker. I'm passing this to him before he's introduced. But this is a book I've been holding on to, and I'm finally letting go of it. It's called Growing Older, and I think it's a classic. So here you go. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Brittany Jones, thank you, who's a student in community informatics here at GISLIS, and she's going to introduce our speaker today.
Hi, everyone. Noah Lenstra is a PhD candidate in Library and Information Science here at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where he is a member of the Community Informatics Research Lab. Since 2009, he has served as project director for the e-Black Champaign-Urbana project, a digital portal of local African American history. In spring 2012, he led a workshop series on digital and local family history with funding from the Illinois Humanities Council. Older adults were the most enthusiastic supporters of these projects, so Noah decided to focus his dissertation research on how community-based information infrastructure, specifically public libraries and senior centers, support older adults' learning of new technologies. Please join me in welcoming Noah Lenstra.
Great, well, thank you. I'm really pleased to be here and share with you some of my both thinking and research about what it means to aging in the information city. It's a topic I'll unpack today in this lecture. But I just wanted to begin by this really provocative image that was actually made by the Chicago Public Library in, I believe, the late 2000s. And it says, not what you think, and I don't think you can read the small print, but it says, get your beats where Granny gets hers. So it's kind of a playful invocation of a conventional stereotype, and it doesn't directly challenge it, but it kind of plays with it in an interesting way, and public libraries can do this type of intergenerational invocation and kind of tweaking a stereotype so that we have an information city that includes everyone. So basically, the outline for today's presentation, I'm just going to explain the topic, why do we need to pay attention to aging in the information city, why is that an important topic for our agenda this semester. Then I'm going to talk about some of the theory and methods that I've brought to my both ongoing and past research on this topic, and outline some findings from a couple of the studies that I've been a part of, looking at some cyber navigating workshops that we did with students here at GISLIS in the spring and summer of this year, and then looking at my current research, which is really looking at cyber navigating as it is embedded in local institutions. And finally, I'm going to discuss the significance of these findings in the context of information cities and the importance of including older adults in our thinking about what it means to live and inhabit and to make an information city. So the first way to begin is just to acknowledge the fact that every city is an information city or is becoming one. And at the same time, almost all cities are aging, so the median age is rising in local communities around the world. So just as a vivid demonstration of that, in 1965, 38% of the global population was between the ages of 0 and 14, and only 8% was between the ages of 60 or older. Whereas today, that gap is closed somewhat. We have 26% between the ages of 0 and 14 and about 12% 60 or older around the world. It's predicted to be pretty much on par by 2050 if current population trends continue, and by 2100, hopefully some of us will still be around by then if longevity trends continue the way they're going. There will actually be about 10% more people age 60 and above than there will be ages 0 to 14. So this is kind of a big shift, a really tectonic shift in how the world works, and we still in our thinking about what it means to prepare people to go out and to make information cities and community informatics and library and information science. It really behooves us to monitor this shift closely and to think about how this affects all aspects of library and information science and all aspects of the cities in which we live and will live. And this is just the bottom image is just from a class, a MOOC actually, a massive open online course taught by the University of Pennsylvania, exploring what they're calling the old globe or aging issues, not just in the West, but in places throughout the world. And the faces they chose to highlight here on the Facebook page really highlights how aging is really a global phenomenon affecting all countries. And so it's no matter where you are, no matter where you end up, this is going to be an issue that you're going to confront. Every information city is an aging city. And so public libraries have really paid attention to this issue, and they have these guidelines for library and information services to older adults, which were originally formulated back in the mid-1970s and have been updated over the years. And I just want to read a brief excerpt from the most recent update from 2007. In which the guidelines state, in 2007, 1 of every 5 persons was 55 years or older in the U.S., or over 68 million people. The aging of the baby boomers will add to these numbers well into the next decade, and the lengthening of the average lifespan is creating several generations of older adults at a time that the U.S. has become more ethnically and linguistically diverse. As a result, the current population of older adults is the most heterogeneous in U.S. history. So it's not just about understanding older adults, imagining that if you understand one older adult, you understand the entire population. It's really kind of getting a handle on the diversity of experiences that come with aging and finding services and that are flexible and adaptable to meet the needs of multiple ways of aging based on multiple life paths and experiences and cultural backgrounds. So it's a tricky issue to navigate, and it really requires a lot of learning and a lot of research. And I'm just getting started with my research, but I'm hoping to give at least some data that you all can use to reflect on this topic. But we need a lot more research, because if heterogeneity is only going to become more complex as older adults become a larger proportionally demographic group in the total population. To begin, I want to just briefly acknowledge the way that aging and older adulthood have been conventionally understood in the mainstream literature about information societies or ICT and society issues. So the difficulties older adults have learning digital technologies are in the mainstream literature, and I'll talk a little bit more about this mainstream literature in a minute, are commonly framed as based on their declining minds and bodies. And this research, my research and our research here starts in a different place, looking at local communities. And so older adults in their communities, what they do with their time, how they interact with others, both of their own age and across generations. A lot of older adults we know are now taking care of grandchildren because for whatever reason the parents are out of the picture. So it's a really older adults in their communities, not older adults as an amalgam of different problems that have to be addressed through assistive technologies of one sort or another. And so part of the problem of studying aging in the information society is the information society is also an ageist information society, in that it's premised on the primacy of youth and youth know what all these ICTs mean. So if you're an old person, you need to find a young person to show you how to use your iPad or whatever that is. So here's just some of the people who've done research, really good research on this topic, working with older adults have acknowledged that a lot of older adults carry with them stereotypes about the ageist information society that they've kind of imbued and can also be an obstacle for learning technology. So talking about research in the U.S., Birkeland and Chrisp Brown find that older adults refuse to use a device they see as stigmatizing, even if they comprehend the benefits of using a device, because they don't want to be seen as a collection of disabilities. As I mentioned earlier, McKee and Blair, doing research in a senior center in New York City, right? You don't see grandma dancing with an iPod, for example, and the message is that technology is for the young is something that many older adults seem to have internalized, they found in their research. Similarly, in Malta, in Europe, Formosa, an education scholar who did a lot of research with older adults, finds that one prominent barrier to engaging with ICTs included the belief that the internet is the preserve of the young and how they were now, quote, too old to use ICTs. So these are challenges that we live in our society, especially Western society, where there's so much emphasis on youth as finding ways to overcome these kind of really deeply ingrained cultural beliefs and the primacy of youth and how that affects how older adults learn technology. So how did I become interested in this topic? Having kind of given you kind of a brief overview of the importance of the topic, I also just want to briefly also mention my own personal experience. So I didn't, and when I started Library and Information Science, I didn't have it in my head that I was going to work with older adults and that was going to be my main research topic. But getting out in the local community, I came up against the growing presence of older adults in the local African American community, in particular. Many older African Americans who really wanted to get involved in a project. I continue to be the project director for, and is now part of InfoCityCU, which is the E-Black Champaign-Urbana project. As Brittany mentioned, it's a project to document and to make available online information about African American history in Champaign-Urbana. So in the course of developing that project and related cultural heritage initiatives, I really came up against the fact that, wow, there's a lot of older adults here, older African Americans who are really interested in this, but they're really having some difficulties really participating in the information society, and there's things that I could do and other people could do to make this situation better. So that's how I really became interested in this topic, and I'm willing to bet that as you go out in your own professional career, you too will find that there's a lot of older adults in whatever community I work in. I mean, this is the way that society is heading towards, so it's something that it's worth thinking about now so that you're better prepared for your own professional futures. So finally, I just want to, my methodological commitments are really about witnessing older adults in their communities. So I mentioned that mainstream view of seeing the problems of older adults as a collection of disabilities. So the image on your left is from the MIT AIDS Lab. And they spent over a decade developing this elaborate suit which is supposed to somehow simulate the experience of aging, and it really reduces older adulthood to a collection of disabilities, imagining that what it means to be old is nothing more than having impaired mobility issues of one sort or another. And they actually say that this suit is supposed to somehow create empathy among young students for what it means to be old. So they're going the route of saying you don't actually need to interact at all with old people to understand how to design technology for old people. You just need to come up with better simulations so that young people can through some kind of virtual reality understand what it means to be old. Whereas the approach I adopt is this is Barbara Kirschenblatt, a folklorist, and I really love this quote. She had from her research with older adults from the late 1990s, and she writes, "The elderly are more than custodians of heritage. They are people in their own right, active in the present, and experts on what this period in the life cycle is all about. They are not only witnesses to what once, they are also individuals with a profound need to be witnessed." So the kind of theoretical, methodological angle I have is that if you want to understand aging societies, you need to talk to the experts and interact with the experts, and those experts are older adults themselves. And the other theory we use a lot, and I use in my research, is cyber navigating in the informatics moment. And so this is basically the idea that there's something really profound and important about that moment when people, when there's helping interactions around technology, when one person or multiple people help one person or multiple people learn to do something new with technology. And often that learning is bi-directional. Both people learn together, and it's a small moment. It may seem mundane, but it happens all the time, and there's a structure and process to it, as my advisor Kate Williams has pointed out, and we need to understand these cyber navigating and informatics moments in more detail so that there's more people are included in the information society. And I'm not going to talk too much, and just for the sake of time, I'm going to skip a little bit of this, but the other methods that I use are the case study, which is just focused on a real-life, contemporary, bounded system, a case, and then the extended case method, which basically uses case study research to extend theories so that they're better able to, and I'll talk a little bit about the end about how I believe my research can extend our knowledge about older adulthood, about cyber navigating, and about a few other concepts that I won't go into great detail today. But just so that the findings from this research have come from both research in the past and research ongoing. Last February, students in an online course, an introduction course, LIS 502, led a 2-hour one-on-one cyber navigating session with 40 older adults at a public library in Champaign-Urbana, and the students recorded their observations about the workshop. And at the end of the workshop, older adults answered some questions about how the workshop went and about their backgrounds. Later that year in May, we had another series of workshops, this time focused on older adults learning to video chat. And here again, we had students working alongside community leaders to help 30 older adults learn video chat technology in 1-hour cyber navigating sessions. And the older adults answered some questions before and after the workshops. And the researchers took field notes, and that kind of leads into the third stage, which is my dissertation field work, which is ongoing, which as opposed to looking at cyber navigating in the context of more closed-off workshops that are finite, is looking at cyber navigating as it occurs in real time in an ongoing fashion in local institutions that are open to the public during regular hours. So looking at more naturalistic cyber navigating as it occurs in real time, as opposed to the more structured context of the workshops we held in the past. And so just some of the findings, so just as background, this is our research team from, some of the few people aren't here, but these are the people who did the video chat workshop, and they're standing at the Douglas Annex Senior Center, where we did some of the video chat workshops. So we had a lot of people really help out with this workshop, and we did this workshop with this research also without any funding, so we really relied on the goodwill of a lot of people who were really interested in this topic and wanted to learn more about it. So it was really great that we could count on all these people interested in helping to make a more inclusive information city, both to help older adults and to learn more about how those helping interactions actually work. And in this research, we've asked 3 questions. Can student volunteers positively impact the technology skills and attitudes of older adults? Does technology and literacy improve older adult quality of life? And to what extent and how does community-based information infrastructure support older adult digital literacy. And the last question is the main question I have in my dissertation. And we find answers to these questions through cyber navigating. And so we offer service, and in the context of offering service, we learn about what it means to help people with technology and to help include more people in the information society. And the image on the bottom is just an example of just a regular drop-in workshop at at the Douglas Annex Senior Center, and the image on the top is just an example from one of the workshops I gave in spring 2012 when I did the digital local and family history workshop, and I found that most of the people who came to those workshops, which in no way was explicitly marketed to older adults, but the average age of participants was I think 61, so it was a topic that was really of great interest to older adults, and was one of the factors that led to this research. And so out of these cyber navigating workshops, and especially in February and May, we collected a lot of data. Students were writing down the answers that the participants in the workshops gave to the questions they had. There was a lot of handwritten responses. We found that for some of the longer answers, we needed to really start using having typed responses. So towards the end, we moved away from handwritten responses to typed responses, having one person ask the question, the second person typed older adult responses, and for this we're also experimenting with the best methods to do this type of research with virtually no funding, and to really how to have high impact research on a low budget is another theme of this project. So first, I'd just like to start with the findings from the students, and many of you are students here at Giftless, and I just want to begin by including some of the findings from the students who participated in these workshops. So one of the people who helped participated in the Seniors in Technology workshop at the library in February said that, well, we wanted to get library books on our iPad, so we got the 3M app and entered the library card info. I had to call the library for help, and they were ever so helpful. The delightful moment when the books on the screen appeared was awesome, and I even felt thrilled. Also, hearing that she was less intimidated was so satisfying. And there's a lot of things that are interesting here. One is the enthusiasm of the students for this helping interaction, but the other one is the student who participated wasn't the expert in this interaction. They had to reach to a third person who then helped them, so it's not. So cyber navigating is not about kind of like a rigid hierarchy. There's one person who has all the knowledge and there's one person seeking all the knowledge. It's kind of like navigating all the resources that are needed and helping older adults kind of get in the flow of those resources so that they can hopefully find the answers to the questions more easily themselves. The second quote we have, this is even more emotional than the first one. So this student wrote, "She loved when I empathized with her on particular challenges. A 20-something can be confused when using ICTs too. When she shared her method for creating and remembering passwords, I wrote it down and thanked her multiple times for the tip. It was really great. We also had a great chuckle over Facebook. We hugged at the end." So this is an interesting, this was a 20-something Giftless student working with an older adult, probably in their 60s or 70s, and yet what this student was finding was that they actually shared probably more than they had than the student expected at the beginning. So there's a lot of common ground and intergenerational deconstruction of stereotypes about the significance of age to identity that also happens in these cyber navigating workshops. But the main focus on this research was not on the people giving the cyber navigating, but the participants in the workshops. And the one, I've already talked about the heterogeneity of the experience of being an older adult. And the first one is just how diverse these participants in this study have been. In the February and May workshops, we had an age range going from 57 to 92. I mean, that's a huge age range. I mean, can you imagine if libraries had services for patrons from ages 0 to 30 or 0 to 35? I mean, it wouldn't make any sense. So one of the challenges is that now that there's more and more older adults, there's some people have questioned whether or not this category needs more minute categories, or what's the best way to kind of make sense of this very heterogeneous experience as older adults grow in terms of their numbers. And I just included this image because this is an image of two older adults, actually of different generations interacting with one another. In part of my work at Informatics, this woman on your right, she wanted to go with me to interview an elder in her church. So the woman on the right, who was 70 herself, wanted to help me interview someone in her church who was in her mid-90s, 95. So it's kind of, we're now at a point whereas at ALA quote, we have multiple generations of older adults, and thinking about the significance of that diversity, and I think I was really pleased that when we had these workshops, we did include older adults of multiple ages and many ages, so that'll help me and help us understand some of that heterogeneity. And also we had people of many social class and ethnic backgrounds, with the caveat that we had a high participation of African Americans, but very low or almost no participation among Asian Americans or Hispanics. So that's something that hopefully in future research I'll be able to learn more about the experience in those ethnic groups. So just, but with that caveat, we did learn quite a bit from this workshop in February and May. And one thing is that older adults have many digital tools, or at least many older adults do, but many don't have the support to know how to use them. So these are the technology participants in the spring workshop, spring and summer research had at the residences. 91% had some kind of digital phone, whether it's a cell phone or a smartphone. That was almost ubiquitous among the participants. 83% had some kind of computer, whether it was a desktop or a laptop. 54% had some kind of audio-visual device, a digital camera, a digital camcorder, an iPod for playing MP3s, and 44% had some kind of tablet device, whether it was a Kindle Fire or an iPad, or other tablet type devices. So that I think that was pretty significant. But we also asked participants about the sources they have for help with their technology, and we asked them if they felt like they had someone they could turn to if they were having technical difficulties or were struggling in some way. And 42% said that they actually didn't feel like they had such an individual in their lives, and 58% said yes. So that was one of the reasons I feel like the workshops were so well attended, is that this is something that older adults who do have the technology, many are looking for that person or those people or that institution that they can go to get help with technology. As technical difficulties may arise, as they do for all of us. It's not just older adults. I'm the only one struggling with technology. We all are. And another finding is that the workshops generate happiness, and the one-on-one is really key to that success. So in the video chat in the workshop in May, we asked participants before the workshop how happy they felt at that moment and how happy they felt on average during the last week. And then immediately after the workshop concluded, we asked that same question to the participants: how happy do you feel in the moment, at this current moment? And you can kind of see on a scale of 1 to 10, participants felt on average about an 8 over the last week. Just the experience of going to the workshop itself appears to have bumped up their happiness levels to an 8.6, and then the workshop itself seems to have met some of their expectations and added even more to their happiness. And so, and these three differences are also statistically significant. We tested for statistical significance, so these are statistically significant differences in self-reported happiness. And it's an increase in happiness generated by the workshops. We feel that based again on the questions we asked the participants, what's kind of causing this happiness, and for many people, the one-on-one aspect was really the critical factor. We asked so first I should say most of the participants had participated in some kind of technology workshop in the past. About 91% of the participants had gone to some kind of technology workshop in the past, and we asked how did this workshop compare to past workshops, and based on the open-ended responses the participants gave to those questions, coding those responses, we came to the finding that about 42% explicitly said in their open-ended responses that the one-on-one aspect of these particular workshops made them better for them than other workshops that they had been to in the past. So there's a real hunger or desire for one-on-one technology support, at least based on this research that we've done so far. I know a one-on-one cyber navigating moment can be quite powerful among older adults and probably among other age groups as well. So these cyber navigating is so important is because of this concept that others have talked about called digital disengagement. So in a research study in the United Kingdom, some of our colleagues in an information school there learned based on their data they collected across the UK, as well as looking at other national data sets, that older adults are at a higher risk of disengaging from technology than other demographic groups. So that means that after older adults learn technology, or if they've learned technology at some point in their lives, they're at a much higher risk of ceasing technology use for various reasons as they age. So this could have to do with things like retiring, moving, life transitions, changes in technology. I still like WordPerfect. What do I have to learn to use Word 2013? So there's all kinds of factors that can lead to older adults disengaging from technology, and we found this to be true also in our research, where we found out that about half of the participants said that at some period in their life they had stopped using technology for one reason or another, and that's kind of reflected in another question we asked in the workshop. What was the biggest challenge participants had at the workshop? And about half of the participants said the biggest challenge was just getting started. And this is interesting because we also asked participants how long had they been using digital technology, and all except for about maybe 6 or 7 of the 54 participants said that they had used digital technology in one form for another for at least a decade. So you have participants who have used technology for a long period of time, but is in this constantly churning milieu of the information society where it's always something new. It becomes a big challenge for older adults to continue to use technology without disengaging. So despite the fact of having many years of technology use, the biggest challenge continues to be just getting started, because the pace of change at the information society is so rapid that it leads to many older adults falling behind after they've gotten started. But despite that fact, older adults also have an incredible amount of agency and a desire to keep on learning. So this is a woman, an 88-year-old African American woman who has lived her entire life in Champaign-Urbana and has also used digital technology since the 1960s. Pretty incredible. So I'm just going to read this quote. And she's also someone who stopped using technology for about a 10-year period in her life after she retired from her job. So she said, "I quit using technology when I retired in 1986 from a job as a court clerk and stenographer. I used the mainframe computer at Champaign County on the job, one of the very first ones. I took classes at the University of Illinois in the 1960s, learning to program, you would say, tapes and key punch way back when. I learned how to wire a motherboard." That's pretty incredible. The professor drew diagrams and we put it together in the back of employment offices at night in the early 1960s, but I lost track of how to use technology when we switched from mainframes to PCs. And again, she stopped using technology for about a 10-year period after her retirement. But then I took computer classes in the mid-1990s and early 2000s and still have notes from those classes. The desktop I used was bought in 2000, it has XP, and she now has a laptop that she uses in addition to her home computer, and she's learning to use her laptop. She just this week actually just got started on Facebook, and she also participated in our video chat workshop, and she learned how to video chat, and she successfully on her own carried out a video chat with her daughter who lives in Georgia. So her daughter in Georgia had a smartphone and was giving her a tour of the house. And so she was able to take a virtual tour of her daughter's house in Georgia. And so this is a woman who's used technology throughout her life. She's I think, maybe Brittany or some of the other people who've worked with her would say that this is kind of a hidden history. It's not kind of at the surface. When you sit down and work with her in the cyber navigating moment, you may not realize that she has 50 years of technology experience under her belt. You would work with her and you see that, wow, she's really struggling just to get started. And that's what it seems like, and that's kind of the illusion. We lose that experience and the fact that older adults have been active agents and continue to be active agents in the shaping of the information society. So really foregrounding the agency of older adults and making that agency visible, so it's not just kind of seen as older adults are a problem, or older adults, this problem of how older adults learn technology is such a grave problem as if they're not the ones who built the information society to begin with. Finally, I'm running out of time here. I think I'm just going to skip ahead and just say, so my current research is looking at this type of cyber navigating as it takes place in local community institutions, looking at 6 sites in Champaign-Urbana, 3 public libraries, and 3 senior centers. And the question I'm really investigating is to what extent and how does community-based information infrastructure support older adult digital literacy. So I'm hoping to understand more about how cyber navigating involving older adults takes place in real time in local institutions and through an in-depth understanding of cyber navigating in these institutions, hopefully come up with better teaching, better pedagogy, better service, and better research so that we can really understand what's going on here, and based on that understanding, come up with better ways to have an information society that includes everyone. And the reason I'm looking at senior centers and public libraries is because they're publicly funded institutions and they're everywhere, at least in the United States. And so the goal of all of this is information cities. I mean, that's the goal of all the presenters this semester have as the goal, the creation of information cities that include everyone. As older adults continue to become a larger proportion of local communities everywhere, without understanding them, we don't understand the information city. That's kind of my big argument for the importance of this topic, just to summarize. And older adults have a lot of agency in the creation of information cities, and they've expressed that agency and continue to express their agency as they continue to learn new technologies and do new and interesting things with those technologies after they learn them. And the more that we learn about cyber navigating with older adults, the better we'll be able to appreciate their expertise, both about what it means to be an older adult and also about what it means to be a human being. And I just wanted to quickly wrap up and give a foreshadow to next week. This is part of this research has really not been possible without the participation of a lot of people, including my advisor and Professor Alkalimat, who chairs the Information City Lecture Series, but also the 2 individuals who you see here and are going to be presenting next week, Brian Bell and Chris Ham, who have lived in Champaign-Urbana for many years and have been real advocates for closing the digital divide here. And so they too never, before I started working with them, they hadn't done a great deal of focused research on older adulthood, but as soon as they worked alongside me in the field, they were like, wow, this is really important, and there's a lot that I don't know about. And so so that's kind of another key message I want to get to you, no matter where you go, every information city is an aging city, and the more we kind of learn about this topic, the better prepared we all will be to make information cities that are for everyone. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
I'd really like to bring you all into the discussion more and invite you all to say what's on your mind, say who you are, ask a question. It's obviously open for everybody, but thank you for coming. Yeah.
My name is Sayan. I'm a postdoc here at GISLIS, work for the Heart and Trust Research Center. I was wondering, this tendency that you noticed of older adults to fall behind on the use of technology, even though in the past or in their work lives they had been proficient users of the technology of the day. To what extent this could be attributed to the fact that, when this particular 88-year-old woman that you talked about, in her case, it seemed that technology use had been a part of her work life as a stenographer, as an part of her employment. But in the 80s, with the advent of the personal computer, technology becomes kind of integrated into all aspects of lives. It doesn't remain simply a thing that you do for work. So as you had that slide where looking forward into all the way up to the year 2100, would we expect, or would you expect to see the same kind of disjoint persisting into the future, or would today's adults, as they age, technology is technology part of their lives in a different way than technology used to be a part of the work life of people in an earlier generation? And if so, if you expect to see similar kinds of disjoints into the future as we have seen for older adults today?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and I can't predict the future, but I will say that this kind of disjoint continues now in the present among people currently retiring from the workforce. For instance, at one of the senior centers, I met a woman who had retired from the Illinois Department of Revenue just very recently, a few years ago, so a recently retiree, who when she retired, she said that she's done with technology, and that she continues to not want anything to do with technology because of the headaches she had to deal with in the workplace. So I can't say for sure that it's going to be an issue that will persist in the future among people who are currently in the workforce and use technology both on and off the job, but I will say that it continues to be an issue at least among recent retirees. So at least in the immediate future, and probably as longevity increases, people like the 88-year-old woman or this recent retiree are going to be around for possibly 30 or more years. So I would say at the very least this is going to be an important issue to address at least for the next 30 years and possibly longer, depending on if this trend continues into the future. So I can't say for certain how people my age or their youth in general, how it's going to pan out as they themselves become older adults. But I will say at the very least it's going to be an important issue to think about for at least the immediate future. And so it's an important issue for people going out and working in public libraries and other information institutions to be aware of and to be attuned to.
Hi, I'm Allie. I'm a GISLIS master's student. I was just wondering if so far in your research, if you found that older adults have more trouble in general with certain types of technologies. I was just wondering, because I know with my parents and grandparents, they find things like digital cameras to be like really intuitive versus tablets. There's like some sort of disconnect there.
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I mean, I think the one technology that I've seen older adults probably struggle with the most is if they have a laptop, this touchpad right here can be extremely difficult. If you have to, and you don't really, at least I didn't really, I was not empathetic to how difficult this is to use until I really helped some participants use it. And a lot of older adults, a lot of people I know have mouse. If they have a laptop, they like having a mouse that they can plug in because they find that easier to use. But laptop touchpads seem to be very, because you bump, and especially when you're reaching the keyboard and you bump it, and when you're all of a sudden you're keying in something totally different on the page. Those touchpads can be really challenging. That's the one thing that kind of comes to my mind immediately.
How hard are they for young people to use? Maybe they're hard for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a comment or anything.
Well, Linda Smith, I'm on the faculty and I have the benefit of being on NOAA's committee, so I've been introduced to some of this work. But one thing that struck me was your observation about the gap in terms of support. So in your dissertation, you're looking at a form of support where people are mobile, they can come to sites, seek assistance. But I just wonder if there's anything, another trend is the whole idea of telehealth and sort of reaching people in the home, being able to, and again, that's a multifaceted area of exploration, but whether there's anything we could learn about, well, first, better understanding what are the barriers to successful use of technology, and then recognizing that there are older adults who do face barriers to mobility or convenient access to these public computer centers. And are there, do you anticipate getting some insights into other kinds of interventions that wouldn't necessarily assume that you could have someone sitting next to you offering this support?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And actually, even among this mobile population, there was one case of cyber navigating that kind of pointed to possibly the growth of cyber navigating or cyber navigating at a distance. So one of the participants in the Seniors in Technology workshop we had in February, this participant had brought to the workshop a Kindle Fire that she had been gifted over the holidays, and really didn't know where to get started with this Kindle Fire. She knew she liked to read, and she thought, kids thought maybe she'd like to read on a tablet, but was really having trouble getting started. And the giftless student she was paired with had never used a Kindle Fire either, so they were both learning kind of in real time and different learning styles. And that cyber navigating moment, or that informatics moment, what was really helpful and what they really enjoyed, I guess, the children who had bought her the Kindle Fire had also purchased her, Amazon Prime or whatever it is. So there's a Mayday feature on the Kindle Fire. You have to pay to use it, but there's this Mayday thing. If you pay for it, you can press on your Kindle Fire, and all of a sudden someone will pop up in your screen and help you figure out what's going on with your Kindle Fire. And that was, and both of them, in the notes that we got back from that workshop, it was like, wow, this is incredible, and this Mayday feature is great. We need to have more of this. I think. We're not there yet, but I would love to, if at some point, public libraries now are really good about home-based book delivery. Most public libraries will deliver books to people's homes if they have any kind of disability, whether it's related to age or not, to get books into people's homes. But it would be great if we had something like Mayday on that Kindle Fire, but that didn't require having a subscription. That was just a public service offered by the public library or some other institution, so that you can get cyber navigating and have informatics moments even if you can't go to a public library. So that's the only anecdote I have from my research so far, but it's definitely something I will pay attention to, and it'll be really interesting to see if these kind of cyber navigating, if they already take place, and if so, how, and how they could be better supported by public libraries and senior centers in the future would be It's something I think is a really important question to ask, so thank you.
I think that that question really doubles back to your question too, because unless we have a world in which the computers become invisible, and we really live in a smart city that almost doesn't include us. You know, the room is smart, but we're not particularly smart. If we go that way, which is a possible design, William Mitchell is designing a space like that where you can be a passive and sick old person and your house will take care of you. But if we envision a future where we actually are constantly staying up on technology and figuring out new ways to use it ourselves, so where there's human agency in it, then we're always going to have we have informatics moments for decades, right? We don't even know what they're going to look like in the future. And we know that virtual connectivity is exploding, so we're going to have those kind of informatics moments. And we need to get wise about them and do them more. I mean, we do Ask a Librarian, right? And I depend on it. And I find librarians ready to answer my questions day and night. New York Public was great answering questions for me about the espresso book machine the other day. But it's another way in which the study of old people helps us understand all people. Because we all are facing this stuff together, and you all are going to be old soon. But thank you for letting me put you guys on the spot. Thanks for coming today. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Noah.